Let's get straight to Keyu Jin, Associate Professor of Economics at the London School of Economics. Keyu, thank you for joining us. What exactly is the relationship that China's trying to have with their big tech giants?
The government approach is, first of all, to let innovative companies do what they want, and then to create new models, and then they come to regulate after. That's always been the approach. Regulating fintech is not really just a Chinese issue. I think it's a transnational issue. Are they technology companies, or are they actually financial institutions? I think this is, they're walking a very dubious line here. There's no doubt that everybody, including the government, believes that Ant Financial, Alibaba, have been incredibly beneficial to the Chinese community, especially the underdeveloped regions. There's no doubt about that. But they have also been acting as financial institutions, but not regulated in that way. And that is true for a number of companies. But that is not to say the Chinese government wants to actually discourage innovation or entrepreneurship, even in the fintech area.
Keyu, I have a chart here on something that Francine's been way out ahead of. I tend to ignore important things sometimes, so thank God I have her with me. This chart shows Chinese PPI, and it's starting to tick higher and higher, and it looks like it's bringing U.S. CPI with it. In fact, there is a correlation between Chinese inflation and U.S. inflation, and I wonder, what do you expect from Chinese inflation, and will that be imported to the U.S. or exported from China to the U.S.?
I don't think that much of the inflation that we're going to see in China will be exported to the U.S. I think there's a range of structural issues that will keep inflation down unless something dramatic changes in the U.S. And we actually know that China has not been the most significant factor exporting deflation in the period of globalization. So I'm not sure I am of that view. Look, there's been a massive stimulus program and massive government support to resuscitate the economy out from a potential crisis and recession in China. And we're seeing some of the effects of that, and also a contraction in supply in the beginning, and now increasing demand, a lot through this investment response to stimulate the economy. So I think we're just seeing some of the aftermath of that.
To what extent does China actually turn the screws on inflation? I noticed that when nickel prices were soaring, they were suddenly able to produce a ton more, and the price sort of dropped. The air came out of it. Can they do that with other commodities as well?
We've seen spikes in inflation in different kind of commodities in the past. But I think the government's focus, and we can see in their monetary policy mandate, a lot of emphasis is on growth. A lot of emphasis is on financial stability. It's a multifarious, multi-range kind of monetary policy. And so I think they can kind of target certain kind of commodities, but that is not, inflation is not one of their biggest concern right now. I would say, as you've mentioned, as we've heard around the two sessions, financial stability is really one of the primordial policy objectives.
Keyu, how much of the recovery in China will not be equal? And so how much of the leadership of China actually just needs to focus on making sure that whether you're an urbanite or actually you live in a rural part of China, you'll benefit from the same kind of growth?
Poverty alleviation is President Xi's big domestic agenda. And I would say that that and preserving middle income wealth, reducing inequality, is one of the cornerstones of legitimacy of the Communist Party. So by all means, this is a very important issue. We've seen inequality in China also expand during the pandemic, just like anywhere else, especially in advanced economies. But the Chinese government has very specific tools and very targeted measures to reduce inequality, but especially target poor areas. And actually, speaking of fintech, Alibaba and Tencent were heavily invoked during this period to target specific firms, specific people, specific populations to reduce inequality or actually help them from economic problems. So I actually think tech companies and the government have a symbiotic relationship, and poverty alleviation, reducing inequality is one channel in which they work on both together.
Keyu, thanks so much. Keyu Jin, they're Associate Professor of Economics at the London School of Economics. Now, coming up, Biden's big win, what to expect from the president's first primetime address today. Of course, we'll focus on stimulus and we'll focus on vaccines also in America.